Do you feel swamped and unsure where to start? Don't worry, you're not alone in this journey. But today, my guest and I are going to be discussing a very simple, straightforward framework that is not only easy to follow, but apparently very effective. So let's uncover together the root of overwhelm, how to address it head on, and how you can jumpstart your journey towards taking decisive action. Don't go anywhere. Welcome to Leading Intentionally, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of leadership transformation. I am Carmen Paredes, your guide in this journey, and I'm so thrilled to have you with us today. In each episode, we share strategies, insights, and stories to help you drive growth, enhance workplace culture, and lead with intentionality. Whether you are a seasoned executive, an aspired leader, or just someone passionate about positivity in the workplace, this podcast is for you. Each week, I'll bring you conversations with thought leaders, experts, and trailblazers that will share with you their insights, wisdom, and experiences so that you can apply these practical tips to your leadership journey. Get ready to explore topics like inclusive leadership, women's empowerment, effective communication, and so much more. If you're ready to lead intentionally and make lasting impact in your organization, you are in the right place. Let's embark in this transformative leadership journey together. This is Leading Intentionally. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of Leading Intentionally. Today I have with us Corrie LoGiudice, and she helps the women in the workforce become confident leaders and entrepreneurs by identifying and addressing their overwhelmed culprit. As an inspirational keynote speaker, coach, and facilitator, Corrie has been featured in major media outlets like TEDx, Girl Boss, Business Insider, Tribe Global, and The Mighty. Through her keynotes, workshops, and coaching programs, she shows women how to transform overwhelm into extraordinary action, no matter their circumstances, and validate they can confidently step into roles that allow them to have a lasting impact. Corrie and her husband, and 4 children, and 2 cats, 45 minutes from Midtown Manhattan and 10 minutes from the beach in Long Island, New York. Welcome to the show, Corrie.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited that I've been following you. We're in a group of speakers together, and you always see there is the woman like in the middle, and there's the woman on top. And I always thought of Corrie like being on top. A very impressive journey. So thank you for being on the show today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
And I'm going to be in New York in about 20 days.
Wow.
The United Nations. So maybe we can get together for coffee. I don't know.
Please do. Please let me know.
I know New York is not the easiest place to get around, but maybe we'll put it out there in the universe.
No, that would be great.
So I find fascinating the topic that you cover, because as a woman who made it, all the way to the top in corporate America, I know how overwhelming it is to not just compete with the men, but, do that as you're raising your kids and having to be significant other of someone else. And sometimes even like make sure the house chores are done, the homework, and all that. And so how and why did you decide this to be your calling?
Well, in part because I lived it. So I worked for over 15 years running my family's business. I've worked my way up to senior vice president. And I did so, I should say, by my early 30s, that I was doing that. So very, very young. And I very unexpectedly became a single mother of an infant. I ended up having to leave my relationship when my son was only 5 months old. So, and it was due to an abusive domestic violence situation. So all of that aside, the thing that was crazy was during that time frame, I still had to show up and I still had to lead, right? I still had, people looking up to me. I had a lot of guilt and shame that I carried, that I didn't want anyone to know what was going on. behind the scenes that, like, hey, if she can't handle her household, and she allows this behavior at home, like, why should I listen to her? Right? Like, why should I follow her? So it was my big secret. And it still didn't hold me back from progressing. So I, for a while described it, what's more overwhelming than a 20-hour commute and never getting to see your kid? I think the most I ever got to see him was through my home security camera systems when I would check on him during lunch when he would hang out with my au pair. So it was really a stressful turning point in my life trying to navigate that. I was in a male-dominated industry as well. So I tried to get flexible work. I tried to get remote work. I tried to get all these different things. And this was pre-pandemic. So it wasn't really as common as it is now. And it was always turned down. And I still didn't make a change because on paper, I had everything that everyone tells us we want as women, right? I eventually, after the divorce, I ended up doing well enough that I bought a brand new house at a great school district. I was dating again. I was making huge advances for the company, the things that we would do. So no one would have had any idea anything that was going on behind the scenes. And I didn't feel a need to make a change until I discovered my post-divorce partner, who I was with for over a year and a half. Took his life by suicide. So I once again was dealing from zero, having to start completely over and still having to lead my life, be there for my kid, do all the things. But the thing that was the game changer for me after the suicide loss was a voice deep inside of me, even while I was standing on the lawn of his apartment waiting for detectives to show up and roll me out as a suspect. So like super traumatic event. I still had a sense of calm about me because I knew deep down, like, I've been through something like this before. I will get through it again. I know exactly what I need to do to be able to survive this time. And I ended up very quickly stepping down from my role, my 15-year career, that's when I decided to go into business for myself. And I had the same results as I did during the divorce. I ended up, in a matter of weeks, I landed my first paying clients. Within a matter of months, I had a huge social media following. Within a year, I was a TEDx speaker. So from there, due to the urging of my therapist, she had told me once during all of this, hey, if you could figure out a way to, create a structure or framework around how you're able to do what you do, you could really have a lasting impact, on people in general. And that's what I built my business around. And that's what I coach and speak on today. So I lived it.
It was so needed. I mean, there's so many times where asking for help has been like the most important thing I could have done. Like now, obviously, I'm on the other side of all the traumas and all the overwhelm and all this stuff, right? But for me, it was work gave me dopamine because I was good at it. And my personal life was crumbling. And again, I'll show up like you, the well composed, have everything in paper, making multiple six figures, the first Latina vice president in the largest telecommunications company in Alaska, all these accolades, right? And but internally, it's like I felt like a failure, right? Because I wanted to have a happy family. Here I am, divorced more than once, creating trauma in my children, yet I needed to have it all together. I was, in a boardroom full of men who don't even have a second of understanding what it is to be a woman trying to make it in a male-dominated world. So
no, they don't. And I think that's such an important point too, because it's so much harder for women in leadership because, even the things that, I described in my life between like divorce, I also had a miscarriage in that 5 years too. So like a lot of stuff happened. But even when you look statistically, it's more common for women to go through this stuff than not. It's more common for everybody, just as human beings, to have these kind of experiences. Yet women don't have the capacity that they need to be able to hold time and space for themselves to heal from it. Unlike men in leadership, because men in leadership, more times than not, have somebody at home that's doing the housework, and they have the wife and who's taking care of the kids. Women don't have that. So I feel it's a very important topic, especially for right now, as as of, I believe, 2019, there are more women graduating college and entering the US educated workforce than all time. So more women are entering, but still to date, less than 30% even make it to leadership, and less than 10% even make it to CEO level.
Yeah.
So there's still a huge gap.
And it's funny because I'm quoting that stat in my United Nations speak, because I'm talking about women empowerment. And I add something to that. For Latinas like me, it's 1%.
Yep.
1% of top leadership positions are held by Latinas.
Yep.
And so, okay. So you were able to document your journey and come up with a framework, right? Can you, without giving it all away, can you tell us?
It's okay. I give it away. No, it's fine. Because then from there, if you want help implementing it or you want to bring it to your group, then you call me and then we can talk about that, right?
Yeah.
But the framework is so simple. It's easy to share the entire thing. So that's not a problem. So really, anytime that you're overwhelmed, it comes down to one of 5 causes. So 5 things that cause you to feel overwhelmed. I've dubbed them the overwhelmed culprits. And if you're able to identify which culprit it is that's causing you stress and anxiety in that specific time frame, and mind you, it changes, right? Because the way that the cycle ends up working is, overwhelm is a sign that something in your current strategy isn't matching your current reality, right? That's really all it is. And a lot of women, I feel, they feel guilty and ashamed that they're overwhelmed, where really that's not the right mindset to have about it. It's just a sign. And it's a sign that means something leveled up in a way. You know what I mean? That you got to change what was the actions you were taking day in and day out are no longer having the same results. Something changed. So you need to change what's going on, right? So if you could identify which of the 5 and then be able to address it and bring it back into alignment, that allows you to keep moving again, stay in action, which is what I had demonstrated all those years during the divorce and the suicide loss. So they all begin with a C. They're very, very easy to remember. And they kick off with the first one being a lack of clarity, right? So it's not just a matter of knowing what you want, it's knowing why you want it and being really specific. So for me, as an example, when I was doing my 20-hour commute and I didn't want to make a change, right? Because I thought that everything on paper was okay. What I realized later on was it was a lack of clarity, because I was working, one of my top values, I should say, take a step back, is family. Right. Family is number one for me. And I was working in my family's business. So in terms of checkbox life list, it's hey, I'm with my family all the time. This is great. I shouldn't need to make a change. But what I was wrong with was my why. And my why was I wanted to be in the family business. I wanted to run my own business so I could have freedom and flexibility to be with my own family, meaning my child. So by spending time with one, I wasn't spending time with the other. So having that level of clarity allowed me to kind of kick back into action again. So that's the first one, lack of clarity. The second one is a lack of confidence. It's not just a matter of knowing, what you want and why. You have to believe that you could do it, right? And I say this all the time, the lack of confidence itself is an inside job. So many women look for external validation from other people. And if you are living your life in that manner, you're always going to stay stuck and never move forward, because you need to identify for yourself, what is it I'm not confident about? And then go through, the motions of doing it. So as an example, when my therapist had told me, hey, Corrie, you should consider being a coach or something. You have an ability that most of my patients don't, you should look into it. And I thought she was insane. I'm like, there's no way I could be like a Tony Robbins. What are you talking about? But I didn't have that confidence when I actually went and I did research and I looked into coaching certifications and I read books and stuff like that. I was like, oh, this is all the same stuff I've been doing for 15 years as a leader. Right. So yes, I can do it, but I had to be the one to see it, to bridge the gap, right? So confidence. The third one is a lack of community, right? Famous motivational speaker Jim Rohn once said that we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So if the 5 people that you are spending the most time with don't know how to do what it is that you want to do, don't support you in doing what it is you want to do, or they hold you back because it's not going to benefit them in some way, shape, or form, you're never going to move. You're going to stay stuck. So that's a huge one.
Which is a huge reason why to have a coach.
Yes.
Be one of the
coaches 5. Coaches, mentors are excellent in that aspect. I know for me, for example, during my divorce, I ended up inadvertently starting a single moms Facebook group, which became huge, and learning how to navigate that. Even following the suicide loss, I found a suicide loss survivor group, right? To go and actually be with people who understood exactly where I was in that moment, to have that sort of camaraderie. It's really, really important.
And it's so, can I interrupt you? It's so important. So I had an ectopic pregnancy too. And I mean, I don't remember any other point of my life where I've been more devastated than that.
Right.
There's so much shame and guilt. Like I felt my body betrayed me. My body did this. My body killed the baby, right? And if I didn't have my older two kids, who knows what would have happened? But I needed to stay sane because of them. But I did found a community of women who have gone through this, and you always gravitate to some people. So it was like 5 of us or 6 of us.
Yeah.
That around the same week we all went through these. And that's really what pulled me through, because sure, we weren't lifting each other up, but allow the outlet, to cry, to complain, all the crazy things you need to do after a loss. You have to track your human hormone, like it's going out of style, to make sure your body's clean. All these things that nobody knows how traumatic it is. And then it was so, thankfully, I mean, all these women that were in the same, they all actually were able to have the rainbow babies, including me. So, going through, the dark periods and coming out with community was so important, because we think, I mean, I was raised to be Wonder Woman, and it's one of the worst things. It's like, why shame to ask for help, right? So
exactly, and it's asking for help in multiple different ways. So you can ask for help if you're dealing with a trauma. You can ask for help if you're looking to advance your career, which, Carmen, that's how you and I had connected through a group for speakers, right? Looking to advance our careers on that side. So there's so many different ways that you can come into it, but your community is key in getting you where you want to go. The 4th C is lack of conditioning. So when I say lack of conditioning, I mean your mental health and physical wellness, which is usually the first one that goes out the window for the working moms. They're just like, I say yes to everybody else, and I keep saying no to myself. And that ultimately is what's going to end up leading you to burnout. It's going to affect your relationships. It's going to affect your health. It's going to affect everything. So it's really, really important that you're, making sure you're drinking enough water, that you're getting some kind of movement every day, that you're getting sleep. Like, sleep is so important.
That you go to the doctor if you're not sick. I mean, if you're sick. I mean,
even if you're not sick, I'm awful as an entrepreneur. I don't want to take the time out from work to go to the doctor. It's almost like self-sabotage, just for like an annual checkup. Because I think I should worry about my kids instead of me, but that's not a good mindset to have. So yes, I agree.
When I had to quit my job because I was so burnt out, I had actually bleeding stomach ulcers. That it wasn't until I literally was puking blood that I'm like, I probably should go to the doctor. But for a year, I've been having, acid reflux and pain and things like that. I mean, it probably could have been prevented or caught up before it was like, oh, you have to fly to the Mayo Clinic and have a life-threatening surgery.
Right. Yep. So, and it's important because if you had looked at the signs earlier on, like, for example, now the Overwhelmed Culprits, right? And then look for those little, oh, you know what, maybe I should be taking care of myself a little better. You have the potential to avoid, those types of really dire, health opportunities.
And then we're missing your life.
Yes. The 5th one is lack of consistency, right? So a lot of times people will either take like 2 steps towards it and be like, oh, it's not working, so I give up. Or another option would be that they aren't putting the consistency into it. It's to really see success. It's the sum of habits, like really, really boring habits done consistently into eternity, and to realize too, I say this all the time, if you want to lead an extraordinary life, it really requires extraordinary action. So if you're not getting the results that you're looking for right now, it's going to require you doing something over and above what you're already doing to move the needle. Right. So that's where the consistency kind of comes into it. And we're just talking about simple things like building systems, building habits, having like structure to your tasks and your schedule and things like that all help with consistency.
So I'm curious. So in a situation like you described, do you have one of these culprits, all of them, What does it look like someone who's going something so personal, right? Because this is not like, oh, I am overwhelmed with work.
Right.
Yes,
Well, it
but
depends. People are overwhelmed with different things, right? And great story. I have a great story to kind of demonstrate this because it changes based on what's currently going on at the moment. Right. So I have a very close friend of mine who had decided to, she happened to be part of a group that I was actually doing a paid speaking gig for to do a workshop where I was walking people through it. And she decided to participate. And I offer a free quiz to discover your overwhelmed culprit. I'd be happy to offer it to your audience, Carmen. We talk about it at the end. But everybody did the free quiz and got their results on what their culprit should be. And then I walked them through a series of exercises to kind of help address it. And my friend is like, text messaging me on the side, so it's like a Zoom thing. And she's like, Corrie, there's something wrong with your test. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, there's something wrong. It says that my thing is conditioning and there's no way that is conditioning because my friend is, she has a few autoimmune issues. So she's very, very adamant about like eating super clean and she works out and she does all this stuff. She's like, it can't be conditioning because I take care of my health. And I'm like, yeah, but you were just talking to me last week that you need your gallbladder out. Like that's very much a health related issue. So yes, it is conditioning. It's just showing up in a different way. But it's interesting though, because it's built, the structure itself is built to work in a cycle. So for this friend that I'm sharing, it was conditioning in that moment. Once you address it, you start taking action again, you're moving, things are going good, you're not stressed out anymore. Something ultimately is going to change. This is life, right? The only thing consistent in life is change. So you're going to feel overwhelmed again, right? Then from there, you go through the process again. Okay, which of the 5 is it? Then you're going to address whatever it is at that time. It might be clarity. It might be a community, right? It might be, it could be your consistency. You don't know. But from there, if you're using all of them in a cycle, then it becomes that much easier to continue having success, towards your actions instead of staying stuck, right? Which is what I ultimately had demonstrated during my 5 years of trauma, that I was still having such great, professional and career and also personal, milestones that were happening despite everything happening, all the things going on behind the scenes. And it was because I was really step by step, addressing each and every one of them, right, as they popped up.
Yeah, I would like think about, and I'm looking at the chair that's right here and it has five wheels, like, and it's like if one of those wheels is taken out of the framework, it's going to tilt, even if the other 4 are sturdy, right? So I feel like it's like that, right? Because at any point in time, you might lose the clarity of why you're going after something. And I mean, I know what that looks like. It's frustrating, and it makes you just like spin in circles like a hamster wheel because you don't know where you're going. And then confidence comes and goes. Like I always have been deemed as a very confident person, and for the most part, I am. But what I tell people is that there's 2 types of confidence. One is, and I used to do this, it's like I only play games that I know I'm going to win. So it's easy to be confident when you're only engaging with things that are not out of your comfort zone. But then when as you go through life and it's like, okay, well, get over yourself. Let's do things that are a little, to grow. Then in order to gain that confidence, you have to either study or practice or just jump, right? And so that's a cycle, as you're saying it. The community.
Go ahead. No, and I think the confidence side of it too, it's interesting you mentioned too, because it's like, yeah, I'm confident, but as long as I'm doing things within that comfort zone. Yeah. Right. But the way that we become high performers is by continually pushing it. Yeah. Right. It's like you can't sit in that comfort zone and, make it to the top. It just doesn't work that way. But then it ties into all those other things too. You also can't do it if you're not consistent in your actions. It all kind of plays along. The other thing I forgot to mention too, which I think is important to note, is the system works not just for personal and professional development. I've used the same exact system in working with teams as well as organizations. So in my business coaching practice, we do a lot of this stuff, even if I'm working with a CEO in an org, trying to identify like why they're stuck. sometimes it could be, for example, the clarity, it's the CEO isn't communicating his, vision, or doesn't have a mission statement, or things like that, that there's no direction that the team's working towards. It could also be that, conditioning, they're, burning the candle at both ends, right? Their practices, within the organization are not, conducive to physical health and wellness. So you need to identify that if you want your team to be able to perform. So it works very well for both.
No, I can totally see a picture for corporations too, because you're right. And then confidence is if you don't train your people, regular training.
Right, or if your team doesn't believe they can do it. You gave them a task and they're like, this is crazy. We can't do this on this much time.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to discuss with them, okay, well, what do you think is missing? What do we need to bridge that gap?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. I love it. And so let's talk about the free quiz. Like, how can people get it?
Yeah, you got it. You can just visit my website. It's www.corrielo.com/overwhelmed culprit.
So we'll put a link in the show notes, so it's easy for people to just click and go there. Perfect. And this is great that you're offering it to our listeners. And so, Corrie, how can people work with you? And like, I know you're a speaker, you're a trainer, what are all the ways that someone can engage with you?
Sure. Primarily known as a keynote speaker. So I bring this message to audiences. I do a lot of like women's employee resource groups. I do leadership conferences. And the best way to learn more about that is at my website. I also work as a workshop facilitator. So do the work. What's the session called? It's Discover a Cure for Your Overwhelmed Culprit, where we'll actually walk your group through creating a strategy for what theirs is. In terms of my coaching, I offer life coaching, business coaching, and executive leadership. It's very, very limited just due to the time, but I do offer all of them. And we do, throughout the process, refer back to a lot of the culprits and, whatever it is that we're working on. And last but not least, I have a new program that's specifically for working mothers. In working with the overwhelmed culprits, and in doing so, be able to bridge that gap that we were talking about at the very beginning of this session, to be able to create that time and space that they need for themselves to be able to step up as a leader the way that they want to be. And we leverage the overwhelmed culprits to do that.
Well, ladies, it seems like you guys have to go check Corrie's website, because there's a lot of goodies there, from individually to, share with your leadership, if you're interested in bringing to your organization any of the things she offers. So that's amazing. So, Corrie, is there any last words you would like to share with the audience?
Not that I could think of. I can say, if this topic of the overwhelmed culprits has been of interest, there is a book in the works.
Ooh, exciting.
I get so many requests every time I speak and I get off stage. They're like, do you have a book? I want to take it home. And I'm like, not yet, soon. So definitely, check out my website or connect with me online, for updates on when that will be available.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being in the show today, Corrie. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully
thank you for having me
in New York.
Definitely let me know when you're in town. We'll meet up.
Or maybe we get to share a stage someday.
That would be great.
Yeah. And you guys, the drill. Until next time, lead intentionally. Bye-bye.